and welcome to the flight deck. If you're just joining us, we are in the Phenom 300 at the Belem Airport preparing to take off. We are coming up to and holding short of runway 2, and we're going to do a final check before takeoff check, do a takeoff brief, and we'll be ready to go. So buckle up, enjoy the flight. Alrighty, before we set the brake, I will do one thing here. Let's go ahead and check the takeoff config button. It'll tell us if everything is right.
Takeoff, okay.
Alright, now if you set the brake, it's not going to give you that okay, but we do need to set the brake so that we can get in here, finish up our checklist. Handy dandy checklist. We'll bring up the checklist button and takeoff configuration, okay. So let's hit enter. Cast messages, there aren't any, so they're good. And signs, outlets, let's see, we want to cut off the personal electronic devices. That's on. Yaw damper indicating off. And we're going to use the toga switch to set this up right here. We'll do that in just a second. So yaw damper is off. Passengers, please prepare for departure. They've been advised. Lights, we'll use the strobes and the landing lights. Thrust assurance check, we're gonna skip that. We did it on the last one on the runway. This time we're going to do a rolling start. So get the next checklist ready here after takeoff, and then I'm going to exit that. And let's see, I'll zoom us in here to a little closer range for the departure, about 20 nautical miles. There we are, and track is up, so that's good. So the toga switch, we'll hit that. It's right there, and you can see that when we did, we got flight director bar came on. We have the roll mode, pitch mode, out select is armed, and we're all set. The first leg is in there. That's all ready for us. So the takeoff briefing, let's do that. This will be a departure from runway 02. That's where I've got the heading bug set. We'll be flying the Color.1 departure with an initial altitude of 1,000 feet. That is set. This will be a rolling takeoff. Flaps are set to 1, so V1 and VR are 107 knots. V2 is 116 knots. I've got those all set in there. Prior to 70 knots, the takeoff will be rejected for any amber or red CAS messages. Between 70 knots and V1, we'll only abort the takeoff for an engine failure, loss of directional control, or any other malfunction that may compromise the safety of the flight. Now, if we lose an engine after rotation, I'll continue the takeoff, maintain runway heading, and V2, climb to a minimum safe altitude of 2,000 feet. And when we're climbing through 1,000, I'll notify ATC and refer to the checklist. We've got an emergency checklist in here we can use, and then upon reaching 2,000 feet, we will attempt to restart and request a return to Belem via downwind for runway 6, and that way we can check things out. Are there any questions? If not, then let's call the tower and be on our way. Good morning, Belem Tower. Phenom 757 X-ray Mike, holding short, runway 2, ready to go. Cleared for takeoff. 7 X-ray Mike. Landing lights on, strobes on, all set, brakes released. And we'll get out here, we'll set this timer. Try not to forget that. And we got the timer started. Let's close the box right there. Bring the power up into takeoff. Takeoff power set, airspeed's alive. 70 knots. Looking for VR. Gauge is in the green, there's VR. Positive rate showing on the altimeter and the vertical speed. Gears coming up. Flaps coming up. Yaw damper's on, autopilot's on, flight level change mode is on, and let's arm the nav, fly the departure. And I'm releasing the yoke. It's all up to you now, George. And let's bring the power back to continuous. There it is. Over to departure for 7 X-ray Mike. Good morning. Good morning, Belem, departure 757 X-ray Mike, climbing through 3,000 for 1,000. Up to flight level 230 for 7 X-ray Mike. So we'll go ahead and dial on up to 230. Out select is still armed. We're still holding that 160 knots. I am going to increase that a little bit at a time, not all at once, just to keep us from flying all over the sky here. And that will decrease our deck angle, speed up our ground speed, and we'll run our after takeoff checklist, climbing through 5,000, and we'll get us up to about 200 knots. Then we'll run that checklist, and we're in the turn, headed to color. So I think the auto flight control system, I call George, did a good job there on the departure. And there's 193 knots, 195, coming through 7,000. And we'll hold right there at 200, and let's bring that checklist up. And let's bring it down here, and we'll go through. Gear is up. Flaps are raised, thrust levers are set. And I got to get in there and see that. Altimeters, transition level, transition altitude, actually it's 4,000 feet here. I'll talk about that in just a minute if I remember. So that is set, and didn't cross check it. Yaw damper is on, and we're coming through 10,000 right now. We'll let the personal electronic devices plug in. And let's come off with our landing light and our taxi light and our taxi light, yes. Strobes, we'll leave those on. Okay. And then we are back into our checklist, and we've got the signs and outlets taken care of, external lights, no radar in use. Airspeed is right now at 200. We're going to increase that to 225. Let's bring on some windshield heat, keep from frosting up, and that's all. The next one is descent. We'll exit out of there, and I'm going to zoom us out here so we can see where we are. That's in. Now sit out. There we go. There's color. It is right now 30 miles away. After color will be, what was it? Taken, I think. Well, I'll look there in a minute, but right there is, of course, the Amazon River. And on this southern edge of the mouth of the Amazon, where it's dumping out here into the Atlantic, is the equator. So we are right now less than 100 miles away from crossing the equator in the southern hemisphere. Pretty cool. And this is actually my first trip into the southern hemisphere. I have circumnavigated the world, and I have not yet dipped down into the southern hemisphere. It's all been up in the northern hemisphere. So I think there's supposed to be some type of celebration, party on board. I don't know, a lot of dancing, singing when you cross the equator, but we have done it. Or we're going to do it in just a few more miles. So I want to tell you about the transition altitude versus transition level. So altitude starts with an A, good way to remember this, and it's pointing up, the A is. So when we're in the climb, transition altitude is what applies. In the descent, transition level is we're descending, the V level, V points down, so there you can remember it. When you're descending, transition level applies. Transition altitude here, based on the SID, was 4,000 feet, so that's when we switch over to standard altimeter setting of 29902. And in the in the descent, it is as assigned by ATC. They'll give you a field setting of the altimeter. So that's transition altitude versus transition level, and it is pretty low in this part of the country. It's flight level 180 in the US, but down here it's 4,000 feet. So yeah, anyway, enough of that. Up to 330 for 7 X-ray Mike. Boy, they're getting us climbed right on up there. Now I'm going to go ahead and increase our speed to 225 knots. We'll get in here and take a look at our, notice the nose coming down so that the airplane can speed up. So I'll just do a little bit at a time here. We'll pick up a little bit more forward speed. Let's get in there where we can see. So we're doing 300 now. That's pretty good. And climbing, which is increasing. Vertical speed right now is 2,300 and rising. And continuous climb set 87.9% N1. And we're burning almost 2,000 pounds of fuel per hour. But that's going to get a lot better as air gets thin and the temperature comes down. And we're going to watch the ITT come down as well as we cool off at the higher altitude. So all that's looking good. Let's get the speed dialed on up to, I went the wrong way there, I'm sorry, there's 210. Don't want to move too much at a time. Let it sort of stabilize, then we will add some more. 1,500 feet a minute, 16, it's increasing. Coming through flight level 240. There's a cloud layer coming right there, and we're let's see, minus 16. So I think we're cold enough that that's probably is a pretty thin layer. I think we'll leave that okay. All hold. We're going to bust right through that here. In fact, I will increase that speed. No, I won't increase that speed. I'll leave that speed alone. So we'll just bust right through that little cloud deck. 222 knots right now. And I can change that to Mach setting by pressing right here, and it shows me now, well, I don't know what it's showing me, 0.53. Oh, M, I see, it's M.53. And that's kind of close right there, but let's check on that later. 222 knots, going through the cloud deck, and we're through it. All's well with the world. Center request for Phenom 757 X-ray mic. Yes, we'd like to get higher when able. Up to 430 for 7 X-ray mic. Alright, so we'll get a chance to test and see how this does. There's 3133, okay. So we're in altitude hold mode right there, as we should be. And I'm going to put us up to 430, and I'm just going to go ahead and use the flight level change, what really is a good idea. In fact, well, let's do it this way. Let's use the vertical speed mode. So it starts out with 0, and let's start ourselves climbing. So what we want to do really is get our speed over here close to what we have it set, and that way it won't hunt for it when or jack the nose way up or way down when we engage flight level change. So I think this is the safe way to do it. So we're indicating 240 knots right now, but as I bring the climb speed up, you can see the speed. As the nose comes up, the speed starts to decay there, and as it should be. And so what I'll do is just kind of gently bring the vertical speed up, keep increasing it here. It's indicating right there 3100. I can see the speed bleeding off, and we're close there now to 225, so we'll go ahead and engage flight level change. There it is indicating, and from there we'll just let that take care of our speed for us. And then so now it'll adjust the nose up and down to maintain that speed. It doesn't stay right dead on it. We're indicating up here 225 knots, here 214 knots, so there's some difference there. I don't know why, but there is. Well, we crossed the equator, great, and we are now in the northern hemisphere, so we're getting closer to home, where we want to go, and we are indicating 408 knots on our ground speed. Our climb vertical speed is not that great, 750 feet per minute, and you know, really on a trip this long, I don't mind that. Right now, let's see, our fuel flow is down to 615 gallons per hour per engine. That's really pretty good, but here's a trick to help you get up to altitude. We still have 6,000 feet climb. It'll take us a little bit longer if we wait, although there it is picking up a little bit, probably just a little uplift, but not uplift, but you know, current of air, rising current of air. Anyway, it is hot. We are in the tropics, so there's that. In fact, I don't know if I mentioned, but we might see some thunderstorms along our route, so keep an eye out. Our radar is not great. So where was I? Oh, I was going to show you how to juice this thing on up to get it on up there where we want to go. So right here you can see our Mach speed. This is indicated, but our Mach speed right now is 0.67, and we can climb at 0.6 Mach. So I can bring the speed selection over here, and I know we're like right in tight here. I like to be able to see. So I'm going to drop the speed. Just watch up here. I'll drop it down about 5 knots at a time and look at the vertical speed. Comes right on up there, and all of a sudden, boom, we're gaining 2,000 feet a minute there. Now we're going to lose a little speed here, but as long as I keep it up above 0.6, we're fine. We're not going to stall, and this will help us to get on up to our cruise altitude, where we can burn less fuel, go fast. We still got a ground speed of 400 knots, so this is one jet that you don't have to level off and burn fuel to get higher. We can take it right up to our service ceiling of flight level 450, but it gets slow once we get up here. We've still got a lot of fuel. I mean, we haven't burned anywhere. We start out with 5,400 pounds, so we burned maybe, what, 800 pounds, not 1,000 yet, not even 800. So we're still heavy and still taking a lot of power to climb. So this will help us get up there. And then once we do, we're going to keep the power levers set up, N1 set up pretty high, just until we burn off some of this fuel and lose some weight. And then as we continue along our route and burn fuel and get lighter, we can then pull the power levers back and save some fuel and some money. Although, if I've not mentioned it, I should. I get paid by how much fuel cost at the fill-ups. That's the way I'm getting paid for this trip. So it was, when I checked back in Brazil, it was $5 a gallon, which is pretty steep. And, you know, I'm not even sure if that was 100% correct. It seemed right at the time. And I got a pretty nice little paycheck for the first leg. But this leg, I looked, and in St. Martin, their jet A is $2.70 per gallon. So I'm taking a heck of a pay cut on this trip, but I don't mind, because this is a great job up here as we approach flight level 430. Look down on the world here in the northern hemisphere now. Atlantic Ocean off to our right, Amazon River off to our left. It's a great day to be a Phenom 300 pilot. So I'm just going to keep dropping our speed on back a little bit here and get this last few thousand feet under us. And typically I'll do just 5 knots at a time, let it settle down, and then we'll get another 5 and just kind of keep getting on up there till we get to that 430. And just look in here and see outside air temperature is down to 58 degrees. 190 knots right now, indicating 0.65 Mach. So come on down to 200 knots indicated there, or up here it's indicating 190 here. There's 10 knot difference. What's 10 knots among friends? Here's our wind, 26 knots coming off the port stern quarter from back here. It might be helping us a little bit, but ground speed's 372 right now as we get up here in the very thin air. Bring her on back down. Just about to make 42,000, flight level 420, and Colon is our next waypoint. And then after that, we'll see there's actually, we're going to be flying out of Brazil's airspace into French Guiana, and have a few words to say about that when we get there. And then we'll be heading out over the North Atlantic there's our altitude warning, 500 roughly to go. Let's hit speed select, come on down, just a couple knots here. We don't have much, just need a little bit more and we'll be there. So what will happen, we'll level off. This will change to pitch, and then it will go into altitude hold mode. And so I say it's doing what we want it to. Comes a pitch and it'll bring the nose gently down, level us off, 60 feet to go, climbing at 300 feet a minute. And then we'll just leave the power setting where it is so we can pick up some forward speed. We'll bring our cruise speed up here about 0.74 or so Mach. That's considered high-speed cruise. And then we'll adjust it back as we burn off some fuel. Get a little bit lighter. We are currently cruising along, just happy as we can be at flight level 430, and we are officially now out of Brazilian airspace. We have crossed over into French Guiana, and we are approaching the capital of French Guiana, the city of Cayenne. At least that's how I'm saying it, kind of like the pepper. And just a little bit of trivia about French Guiana. It is a part of France. It's an overseas department, and it's on, of course, the North Atlantic coast. You can look down here on the MFD and see it. This is it right here. It is, of course, Brazil is down here to the south and east, and Suriname is to the west. And it's 3,200. Sorry, that chime is our bug that we need to report back to Embraer. So it is 32,000 square miles, a little more than that. It's got a very low population density, something like 500,000 inhabitants, and half of those live in the metropolitan area of Cayenne. And by land area, it's the largest overseas department and region of France. So little information of the country we are currently flying over. We did get permit to overfly it. That was handled by our handling agent back in Brazil that we contracted to help us with all those things, taxes and fees and airport fees and permits and so forth. Also, let's see, interesting thing, fun fact about French Guiana. I didn't know this, but its economy comes mostly from the presence of the Guyana Space Center. Now, the European Space Agency's primary launch site near the equator. So there's our chime. The equator back behind us, not too far, but yeah, they're got their own little NASA here going on. Well, I don't know if it's little. NASA's little now. They kind of shrinking away, but yeah, there's French Guiana. So just going to look in and check our progress here. We have been in flight now for an hour and 7 minutes, and we are let's see, about 4 miles away from crossing over the Cayenne VOR. And I want to look over here. I'll zoom in a little bit more so let's see where that is. That's right there. And then we're going to be heading out over the Atlantic Ocean, the North Atlantic Ocean, and flying up the island chain, the windward and or leeward, windward, Antilles, Lesser Antilles, all of those up through there. And our next big landmark I'll come back and show you is Barbados. We'll come back in when we get close to that and talk a little bit about Barbados. But while I've got you, before we go to the next part, or the next segment, I do want to come back in here and just look at a few things, a little bit of information. You know, when you're en route, you've got plenty of time to study up on some of the stuff. And so I was looking at some of the pages here. Right now we're on the map page, and that we can scroll over. This is the waypoint page. The auxiliary page, there's a flight auxiliary trip planning page. So I just thought I'd kind of look and see how this was. We're looking at cumulative. You can change this and look at them by legs. Right now we're looking at cumulative from Belem to St. Martin. Departure time is right. Our ground speed is accurate, 423 knots. Fuel flow and fuel on board. So the 582 gallons, I calculated the weight over here that's displayed that I believe is correct, and that is correct. The flow, 70 gallons per hour, is per engine. So really need to multiply that times 2 to get a more accurate reading. So it's really going to be 140. There's the chime, 140 gallons per hour. I don't have to point out every time the chime rings. I guess you can hear it. Okay, so that's not correct there. Okay, big deal, no big deal, whatever. Now let's look over here. The distance is very close. You know, all the legs added up. I added them myself, and I came up with 1,456.3 nautical miles. So that's pretty accurate. It may be even more accurate than I am. ATE, I'm assuming, is estimated time en route. I don't think it's going to take 1923, and I think it's just stuck on that too. I've not noticed. Well, yeah, it would be. I think that so it's wandering a little bit off the altitude, and I suppose the chime is alerting us to that fact. And I don't know if we're just getting in a little turbulence here or not. You know, I am seeing a few cumulus buildups, and there are some potential thunderstorms in the forecast once we get out over the closer to the Caribbean. But for right now, we're okay. So back in here, let's see, estimated time of arrival, I think, and it's not going to be local 308 because right now we're going to maybe cross the time zone. I'm pretty sure we will, but it's 7:44 in the morning. We've already crossed the time zone because we've been airborne about an hour and 11 minutes. We left it, well, no, that's right. Actually, we hadn't crossed the time zone because we left about 6:30, so that's good. Okay, so some of this is okay, some of it's not. This is right, I think. Yep, we decided that is okay. And the fuel required is not right. The remaining endurance is not right. It's not minus 323. The range can't be right. Over here, though, calibrated airspeed and the indicated altitude, pressure, total air temp, all that looks okay to me. The density, altitude, and the, well, is it 29902, so it's using the same number. Okay, by that. The wind direction is pretty good, and we've got 29 knots, and it's calculated that we have a tailwind, a factor of 12 knots, so I think that's okay. Lord have mercy. So anyway, there's some interesting information, but really nothing that's all that useful as far as I'm concerned. I'm not saying not to use it. I'm saying maybe you would want to do your own calculations and use those, but that's just a different way of saying it, right? So let's go ahead and the only other thing over here, there's some timers, and that's all good. It's got our departure time on there. Here's the GPS status indicating the satellites that are being tracked and used. And this page, auxiliary system setup, so you can come in and change some of the units you may want to, like for example, if you'd rather have meters or something else, you can go to metric system over here if you want to. And let's see, There's some other alerts and things that you could potentially change. I haven't tried any of those, so don't really know for sure. Why is the audio voice alert not available? I don't know. We should hear it, a audio voice at some point. And the wrong one, let's go here. And then back over here, the only information really is that we updated our NavGraph database right there. It is. This is not right because it can't expire before it was updated, but it is for simulated aviation only. And I'll make this point, I've said it before, said it again, this is not going to be modeled exactly like the real world Garmin G1000. It's not. It can't. I don't think it could, even if it was as close to perfect as you can get. There's just never going to be one in flight sim that is going to be modeled exactly like the real world unit. The real world unit is so impressive. I think that it'll do anything. It'll do everything. So the real Garmin's, I don't know that you could ever model those things exactly in here, but you can certainly get them much closer, and maybe someday someone will do that. Asking anybody that watches this that's a developer or knows a developer, tell them to do that. They'll sell a lot because people love these G1000s. They're really user-friendly, they're fun, their situational awareness is excellent, and they make touchscreen versions now. G3000, I believe, is what the Phenoms now are being produced with. So yeah, let's upgrade this, but it's still a great unit. Don't want to knock it. Not knocking it terrible. It's going to get us all the way from Brazil back to Wichita, and so far it's doing exactly what we want it to. So we're definitely going to put it through the test. There's some build-up right there coming up. Looks like I'm starting to see more of those as we proceed. I'm going to go ahead and end this part right here. When we come back, we'll be a few en route segments, and then we'll descend and land at St. Martin. For now, I'll just say thanks once again for watching as always, and from FS Mania, so long.
President 2513, continuing climb flight level 400.